The sound was loud, not like a normal slap. This one echoed off marble floor and glass walls. Madame Necker's head snapped to the side. Her eyes went wide. And for half a second, she didn't even cry. She just stared, like her brain refused to believe what her cheek had just felt. Isabella's hand was still in the air, trembling, not from fear, but from anger. "You wicked witch," Isabella screamed, her voice sharp like broken bottle. "You came to bring your problems, and now you want to live with us and ruin my marriage." Madame Necker tried to speak, but her mouth shook. Her expensive white lace gown was spread on the cold marble floor like a broken curtain. Tears were already rolling down her cheeks, fast, embarrassing tears, like her body was crying before her pride could stop it. Isabella took one step closer. Madame Necker lifted her hands a little, not to fight, just to beg. "Isabella, my daughter," she whispered. But Isabella's face twisted, rage. Sitting on it like fire, she raised her hand again, and at that exact moment, the front door, which was slightly open, moved. A shadow blocked the light. A man stood there, frozen, one hand still on the door handle. Ben. Billionaire CEO Ben, her husband, the man Isabella always called my king. His eyes were so wide it looked like he forgot how to blink. He looked from Isabella's raised hand to his mother on the floor, then back to Isabella's face, and Isabella didn't even notice him. Her palm came down again. Pack! Ben's chest rose sharply, like someone punched him inside. He rushed in. "Isabella!" His voice cut the air. Isabella spun, and Ben grabbed her wrist mid-air, hard enough to stop her. For one strange second, the whole room held its breath. Even the chandelier above them seemed to pause. Isabella's face changed. Anger tried to run away, but it was too late. Ben stared at her like he didn't know her anymore. Then, before Isabella could speak, Ben lifted his other hand and slapped her back. Not playful, not gentle, a real slap. The kind that says, "You have crossed a line you cannot uncross." Isabella stumbled, shock exploding on her face. Madame Necker gasped on the floor like she was watching a nightmare with her own eyes. Ben's voice came out low and shaking. "Explain," he said. "Explain right now, before I lose my mind." Isabella touched her cheek, eyes watering, not just from pain but from panic, and Ben stepped closer. His expensive Isiagu outfit looked perfect, but his face looked broken. "Did you just slap my mother?" he asked, like he needed to hear the answer, even though he had seen everything. Isabella's lips parted, and the story you are about to hear is how one slap turned into a storm that swallowed a whole family. But to understand why Isabella's hand rose that day, we have to go back to where love started sweet, and then slowly started smelling like smoke. Earlier, at 2 months before, Lekki, Lagos. Ben's mansion in Lekki Phase 1 was the kind of house people slowed down to stare at. Tall gates, security cameras, interlocking tiles that shined like wet stones. And inside, marble floors so clean you almost felt guilty walking on them. Ben had worked hard for it. Everyone in Lagos business circles knew his name. Ben Okafor, CEO of Okafor Global Logistics. People called him Ben the Builder because he built businesses the way some people built houses, strong and fast. But inside that big mansion, Ben was still just a son who loved his mother, Madame Necker. She was 75, dark-skinned, strong-faced, graying hair, and a quiet pride that never begged anyone for anything. She raised Ben alone after Ben's father died when Ben was still young. She sold food at a junction in Onitsha. She woke before the sun. She slept after everyone. And she never let Ben forget one thing. Money is good, my son, but character is better. Ben always remembered, so when he married Isabella, he made one promise to himself. My wife and my mother will live in peace. I will not allow disrespect under my roof. He believed it. He truly believed it. Because at the beginning, Isabella acted like an angel. Who Isabella was, and what Ben didn't notice, Isabella was 30. Beautiful, yes. The kind of beauty people pointed at in restaurants. She dressed well. She spoke softly in public. She smiled like a sweet wife. Ben met her through a charity event on Victoria Island. She had approached him with a gentle voice. "Sir, thank you for supporting widows," she had said. Ben liked that. He liked how she looked like she cared. They dated quietly. Then they married in a big wedding in Lagos, white wedding at a church in Ikoyi, reception at a fancy hall in Victoria Island, and pictures that flooded Instagram. Isabella loved the attention. Ben thought it was normal. It's her big day. Let her shine. But even during the wedding, there were small signs Ben brushed away, like how Isabella frowned when Madame Necker hugged her too long, or how Isabella whispered to her friend, "Old people like to overdo." Ben heard it, but he laughed it off. Maybe she's just nervous. Sometimes love can make your eyes soft. Too soft. The day Madame Necker came to stay, it started with a phone call. Ben was in his office at Adeola Odeku, Victoria Island, looking at numbers on his laptop when his cousin from Anambra called. "Ben, your mama is not strong," the cousin said. Ben stood up immediately. "What happened?" "She fell in the bathroom. Small fall, but her body is weak." Ben's heart dropped. He drove that evening, straight to the place his mother stayed in Lagos, a smaller apartment Ben had rented for her earlier because she liked her quiet. When Ben entered, he found Madame Necker sitting, wrapping a scarf around her shoulders. "I'm fine," she insisted quickly, like she didn't want pity. Ben knelt in front of her. "Mama, I don't like this," he said, voice tight. "I'm old," she replied simply. "Old people fall." Ben looked at her hands. They were shaking a little. His throat burned. "No," he said. "From today, you will stay with me, in my house." Madame Necker's eyes narrowed. "Your wife—" "My wife will understand," Ben cut in too fast. "She has to." Madame Necker didn't argue again, but she didn't smile either. It was like she could already smell trouble from far away. When Ben told Isabella that night, Isabella froze. They were in their bedroom. Big bed, soft lights, quiet air conditioner hum. Ben spoke carefully. "Mama will stay with us for a while, just until she's stronger." Isabella sat up slowly. "Stay with us," she repeated, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Yes." Isabella blinked. "But Ben, we just got married." Ben frowned, confused. "So?" Isabella laughed lightly, but it sounded fake. "I mean, privacy. You know, husband and wife." Ben stared at her. "Isabella, that is my mother." Isabella touched his arm quickly, like she was trying to soften him. "I know, my love. I respect her. I just imagined we would enjoy our marriage first." Ben's voice dropped. "Enjoy our marriage without my mother being safe." Isabella's eyes flashed, just for a moment. Then she smiled again. "Okay," she said softly, "if you say so." But when Ben turned away, Isabella's face hardened. And she whispered under her breath so low Ben didn't hear, "This house will not become a village meeting ground." At first, Isabella acted polite. She greeted Madame Necker. She served her tea. She even called her Mama. But it was the kind of mama you say with your mouth, not your heart. Madame Necker noticed. Old people notice things. They may not always talk, but they see. The tension started in small ways. If Madame Necker sat in the living room watching TV, Isabella would enter and lower the volume aggressively. If Madame Necker tried to advise Isabella, simple advice like, "Don't talk to the house girl like that," Isabella would smile and say, "Thank you, Mama." But her eyes would be angry. One afternoon, Madame Necker found Isabella pouring away a pot of soup. "Why did you pour it?" Madame Necker asked gently. Isabella shrugged. "It was too oily." Madame Necker stared. "That is the soup Ben likes." Isabella's jaw tightened. "This is my kitchen, Mama," she said, still smiling. "I decide what enters my husband's mouth." Madame Necker didn't reply, but later that night she told Ben quietly, "My son, your wife has a sharp spirit." Ben sighed. "Mama, please, she's adjusting." Madame Necker's voice became soft. "Some people don't adjust, they reveal." Ben didn't want to hear it. He loved Isabella, and when you love someone, you sometimes fight the truth like it's an enemy. It happened on a bright Friday, the kind of Lagos morning where the sun looks too confident. Ben left home earlier than usual in his black SUV, with 2 security men in front. He kissed Isabella's forehead. "Take care of Mama today," he said. Isabella smiled sweetly. Of course, my love. Ben turned to his mother. Mama, I'll be back later. Madame Necker nodded. God go with you. When Ben left, Isabella's smile faded immediately. She walked into the living room and found Madame Necker sitting on the sofa, praying quietly with her eyes closed. Isabella stood there, watching. Something in her face looked like disgust. Madame Necker opened her eyes and greeted, Good morning, Isabella. Isabella did not answer. Madame Necker blinked. Isabella? Isabella dropped her phone on the center table with a loud tap. Are you enjoying it? Isabella asked suddenly. Madame Necker frowned. Enjoying what, my daughter? Isabella's voice rose. This, living inside my house like you own it, sitting in my living room like you're the wife. Madame Necker sat up straighter. My daughter, I am not fighting you. Isabella laughed, one sharp laugh. Ah, so you now call me your daughter? Madame Necker's lips trembled. I only came because my son asked me. I would rather stay in my own quiet place. Isabella stepped closer. Then go, she snapped. Go back to where you came from. Madame Necker took a deep breath. This is Ben's house too. Isabella's eyes narrowed. Exactly, she hissed. Ben's house, not yours. Madame Necker's voice became firm, not loud, just firm. You cannot send me away from my son's house like a stray goat. Isabella's face changed instantly, like a switch flipped, and she shouted, You wicked witch, you've decided to bring your problems and now live with us and want to stop me from enjoying my marriage. Madame Necker stood up slowly. Isabella, you are shouting at an old woman. Isabella pushed her. Hard. Madame Necker fell off the sofa and hit the marble floor with a painful thud. For a second, the house was silent. Madame Necker's eyes filled with tears. Chineke, she whispered. Isabella raised her hand and slapped her. That was the first slap. Then the second slap came, because Isabella's anger had no break. And it was at that moment, when Isabella raised her hand again, that the front door opened, and Ben walked in early. Ben was supposed to be in a meeting, but something happened. On his way to the office, his assistant called. Sir, the Singapore partners postponed, the assistant said. Ben was quiet. Postponed till when? Next week. Ben rubbed his forehead, tired. He had barely slept. His mother's health had been on his mind, and he had been feeling something, a kind of worry that wouldn't leave. So he made a decision. Turn back, he told his driver. Take me home. I want to check on Mama. The driver hesitated. Sir, your office. I said turn back. And that was how Ben returned earlier. Not because of Isabella, not because of business, but because of a son's uneasy spirit. And now, that spirit was standing at his doorway, watching his wife slap his mother. Ben didn't shout at first. He didn't even breathe properly. He just stood there, eyes wide. Isabella was too angry to notice him. Madame Necker was on the floor, crying, and Isabella lifted her hand again. Ben rushed in. Isabella! Isabella spun, and Ben grabbed her wrist in mid-air. His grip was tight. Isabella's eyes widened when she saw him. Ben! But Ben didn't let her finish. He slapped her. Isabella gasped, holding her cheek. The room felt like it was spinning. Ben's voice was shaking now, loud and broken. Are you mad? Is this what you do when I'm not at home? You slap my mother? My mother? Isabella's mouth opened, but no words came out. Madame Necker sat up slowly, still on the floor, her hands trembling. Ben pointed to the floor. Look at her, he yelled. Look at my mother on the marble floor like she's nothing. Isabella's eyes started to fill with tears. Not soft tears, hot tears. But even while crying, her face still carried anger like stubborn dirt. She dropped to her knees suddenly. Ben, please, please, she cried. Mama has been a problem. She keeps stopping me from enjoying my marriage the way I want. Ben's face went blank, like those words slapped him too. He leaned closer, voice low, dangerous. How does my mother become a problem to you? He asked. Isabella sniffed. She stammered. She couldn't explain, because the truth was ugly, and she knew it. Ben looked at his mother again. Madame Necker's tears fell quietly, silently, as if she was trying not to ruin her son's heart with her crying. Ben's eyes turned back to Isabella. His voice came out cold. Stand up. Isabella stood slowly, shaking. Ben walked past her, heading toward their bedroom. Isabella followed, panicking. Ben, please don't. Ben didn't answer. He opened the wardrobe and started pulling out Isabella's clothes. Dresses, shoes, bags, her expensive pajamas. He threw them into a big travel box. Isabella's breath broke. Ben, stop, I'm sorry. Ben's jaw was tight. He carried the box out. Then another, then another. The security men outside looked confused. Isabella ran after him. Ben, I beg you, I was angry. I didn't mean it like that. Ben reached the front door. He opened it and threw the bags outside onto the interlocking tiles. Then he faced her. His eyes looked wet, but his voice stayed hard. Get out, he said. Isabella froze. What? Ben pointed outside. Get out of my house. Isabella's knees almost gave way. Ben, you can't do this. I'm your wife. Ben laughed once, short, bitter. My wife would never lift her hand on my mother. Isabella started crying louder now, reaching for him. Ben stepped back. Leave, he repeated. Isabella looked past him and saw Madame Necker standing in the living room doorway, still wiping tears from her cheeks. Their eyes met, and Isabella's crying stopped for half a second. Something dark passed through her face, something quiet, like a vow she didn't say out loud. Then she turned back to Ben and whispered, voice shaking, Ben, if you send me away like this, you will regret it. Ben stared at her. What did you say? Isabella swallowed and forced her tears again. I mean, you'll regret losing me, she said quickly, but Ben's eyes narrowed because he heard it. He heard the real meaning behind those words, and as Isabella slowly stepped outside into the bright Lagos sunlight, Ben felt a cold fear crawl up his back. Not fear of gossip, not fear of loneliness, a different fear. The kind that warns you that the person you loved might not be as harmless as you thought. And right then, Isabella turned at the gate and looked back one last time, smiling through tears. Not a sweet smile, a strange smile, one that made Ben's stomach twist. Then she walked out, and the gate shut behind her with a heavy final sound. Boom! Ben stood there breathing hard. Madame Necker's voice came from behind him, soft and broken. My son, who did you marry? Ben didn't answer, because he was asking himself the same question. And deep down, he was starting to feel like the story wasn't ending here. It was only beginning. That night, as Ben sat alone in the quiet mansion, his phone buzzed with an unknown number. He answered, and a woman's voice whispered, calmly, Ben Okafor, congratulations, you just made an enemy. And the call cut off. Ben stared at his phone, heartbeat loud in his ears. Because he knew that voice. It sounded like Isabella, but colder. The house did not sleep that night. Ben sat alone in the living room, lights off, only the blue glow from the city slipping in through the tall windows. The marble floor felt cold under his bare feet, but he did not move. His phone lay on the table. Silent. Too silent. That whisper from earlier, you just made an enemy, kept replaying in his head, over and over, like a stubborn song he couldn't turn off. Madame Necker was in her room. Ben had begged her to let the doctor come, but she refused. I am fine, she said softly. My heart is the only thing hurting. Those words cut him deeper than any slap. Ben leaned back and closed his eyes. How did it reach this point, he wondered. And somewhere across Lagos in the dark, Isabella was also awake. The night bus, Jibawu Motor Park. The bus smelled of diesel, sweat, and night air. Isabella sat by the window, clutching her handbag tight to her chest. Her face was dry now. No tears, just stiffness. Outside, hawkers shouted, pure water, bread, gala. She watched families hug goodbye. She watched men drag boxes. She watched life move, and inside her chest, something heavy settled. He slapped me, she thought. Ben slapped me. Her fingers curled slowly, after everything. The bus engine roared. As it began to move, Isabella leaned her head against the window and finally allowed herself to whisper, she ruined everything. Her reflection stared back at her in the glass, eyes sharp, jaw tight. Not the face of a woman who had lost, the face of a woman who felt wronged. The village was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes your footsteps sound loud, even when you try to walk softly. Isabella entered her parents' compound just after sunrise. Chickens, scattered. A neighbor looked up and frowned. "Isabella, is everything okay?" She forced a smile. "Yes," she said quickly. "I just came to see my parents." Inside the house, her mother was sweeping. Her father sat on a wooden chair, reading a worn newspaper. Her mother looked up first, then froze. "Isabella," she said slowly, "why are you here like this?" Isabella dropped her bag and broke. She knelt down suddenly, crying hard. "Mama, Daddy, my marriage is finished." Her mother dropped the broom. Her father stood up at once. "What happened?" he asked sharply. Isabella told them, not everything, just enough. She spoke of insults, of disrespect, of how Madame Necker interfered. Then she said the words that changed the room. "I slapped her." Silence. Her mother stared at her, slowly, like she was seeing a stranger. "You—" "What?" her mother asked. Isabella sniffed. "She pushed me to it." Her mother stepped back, hand on her chest. "I did not raise a monster," she said, voice shaking. "I raised a woman." Her father sat down heavily. "You slapped your husband's mother?" he asked again, quietly. Isabella looked away. Her mother sat down too, and cried, not loud, just deep, painful tears. "My daughter," she said, "even if your mother-in-law was wrong, you never lift your hand on an elder. Never." Isabella wiped her face angrily. "So you are taking her side too?" Her mother looked at her, hurt flashing in her eyes. "I am taking the side of what is right." Isabella stood up suddenly. "I will go back to Lagos," she said. "I will beg. He will forgive me." Her mother looked at her for a long time. Then she sighed. "I will go with you," she said softly, "because if I don't, you will only make things worse." Isabella nodded, but inside her chest, something twisted. She was not going back only to beg. She was going back to win. Ben had not gone to work. He sat beside his mother that morning, helping her sip tea. Madame Necker's cheek was still swollen. Ben hated himself for not coming home earlier. "If I had stayed," he whispered. Madame Necker touched his hand. "My son," she said gently, "stop beating yourself." Ben's eyes burned. "I should have listened to you," he said. "You warned me." Madame Necker looked away. "I only wanted peace in your home," she said. "I did not know peace would turn into war." Ben swallowed hard. "Mama, I am sorry." Madame Necker smiled weakly. "You did nothing wrong." But her voice sounded tired, too tired. The black gate opened slowly. Ben heard footsteps behind him. He turned, and there she was. Isabella, her mother beside her. Isabella's eyes were red, her face pale. She wore a simple gown. No makeup. She fell to her knees immediately. "Mama, please forgive me," she cried. Madame Necker stood frozen. Ben watched carefully. Isabella crawled forward sobbing. "I was wrong. I was angry. Please, Mama, please." Her mother joined her. "My son," she said to Ben, voice low and pleading, "I beg you, forgive her. She made a mistake." Ben's chest felt tight. He looked at Isabella. She looked broken, too broken, and that scared him. Madame Necker finally spoke. "Stand up," she said softly. Isabella stood, hope flashing in her eyes. Madame Necker looked at her closely. "You hurt me," she said, "not just my body, my heart." Isabella cried harder. "I know," she said. "I will never do it again." Ben turned away. He walked inside, paced. His mind fought itself. "She is your wife. She slapped your mother." After a long time, he came back. "Isabella," he said slowly, "I am allowing you back because of my mother's peace. Not because I have forgotten." Isabella's face lit up. She hugged his legs. "Thank you," she cried. "Thank you, my husband." Madame Necker said nothing, but as Isabella stood and smiled, Madame Necker felt a cold chill run down her spine. A strange calm. The house became quiet again. Too quiet. Isabella became gentle, almost perfect. She cooked. She smiled. She called Madame Necker Mama again, but sweeter this time. She made jollof rice, She brought water. She laughed softly. Ben watched her, and something felt off. Not wrong, just too careful, like someone walking on glass. One evening, Ben mentioned traveling for work. Isabella smiled. "Go safely," she said. "I will take care of Mama." Madame Necker looked up sharply. Ben didn't notice. That night, as Isabella served food, Madame Necker paused. The smell of the jollof was strong, different. Isabella watched her closely. "Eat, Mama," she said sweetly. "You like jollof?" Madame Necker hesitated, then took a spoon. Ben was in the bathroom. The house was quiet, too quiet, and Isabella's eyes never left the plate. As Madame Necker lifted the spoon to her mouth, her hand suddenly shook. She looked up at Isabella and whispered, "My daughter, why is my spirit uneasy?" Isabella smiled softly and said nothing. The spoon fell from Madame Necker's hand. It hit the plate with a soft clink. She stared at the jollof rice like it had suddenly learned how to stare back. "My spirit is uneasy," she whispered again, slower this time. Isabella stood opposite her, calm, smiling gently. "Mama," she said, voice sweet, "you worry too much. Eat. You need strength." Madame Necker forced a small smile. Old women know when something is wrong, but they also know when to keep peace. She took another bite. The rice tasted rich. Too rich. The oil clung to her tongue, longer than usual. Ben came out of the bathroom, tying his towel around his waist. "Mama, you're eating?" he asked, relieved. "Yes," she replied softly. "Isabella cooked." Ben smiled at his wife. "Thank you." Isabella lowered her eyes. "Anything for family," she said, but her fingers tightened slightly around the edge of the table. That night, rain fell in Lekki, not heavy rain, just enough to make the night feel colder. Madame Necker lay on her bed, staring at the ceiling. Sleep refused to come. Her stomach felt warm, then tight, then strange. She turned to her side. "Chineke," she whispered. The room felt heavy, like the air itself was pressing on her chest. She tried to call Ben's name. Her voice came out weak. "Ben?" Down the hallway, Isabella lay awake too, eyes open, listening. She counted the seconds between the thunder outside and the silence inside the house. 1, 2, 3. Then she heard it, a soft sound, not a scream, more like a breath leaving a body. Isabella sat up slowly. She did not rush, she waited. When nothing else followed, she stood and walked quietly toward Madame Necker's room. She stopped at the door. Listened. Silence. A deep, heavy silence. Isabella's chest rose and fell. She stepped back, returned to her room, lay down, and closed her eyes. Morning came. Too calm. Ben woke up first. He stretched, smiled, and walked toward his mother's room. "Mama?" he called. No answer. He knocked lightly. "Mama?" Still nothing. A cold feeling slid down his spine. He opened the door. Madame Necker lay still, too still. Ben rushed to the bed. "Mama!" he shouted, shaking her gently. Her body was cold. His world broke. "No! No! No!" Isabella ran in, acting shocked. "Oh my God!" she screamed. "Mama!" Ben grabbed his phone with shaking hands. "Get the car!" he shouted. "We're going to the hospital." At the hospital, doctors moved fast, but it didn't matter. One look, one quiet shake of the head. "I'm sorry," the doctor said. Ben fell to the floor. His mother was gone. As Ben cried beside his mother's body, a nurse quietly handed the doctor a report and whispered, "Sir, something is not right." Ben looked up. "What do you mean? Not right?" The hospital corridor smelled like antiseptic and sorrow. Ben sat with his back against the wall, eyes red, suit rumpled. He had cried until his chest hurt, until tears stopped coming and only pain remained. Then the doctor returned. He was not smiling. "Mr. Okafor," the doctor said gently, "we need to run further tests. Your mother's death. It doesn't look natural." Ben lifted his head slowly. "What do you mean?" he asked. The doctor hesitated. "There are signs that suggest poisoning." The word landed like a blow. "Poison," Ben repeated, confused. "That's impossible." Behind him, Isabella gasped loudly. "Jesus!" she cried. "Poison! Who would poison Mama?" Ben turned and looked at her. For a brief moment, their eyes locked. Something passed between them, too fast to name. The autopsy took hours. Ben paced. Isabella prayed loudly, drawing attention. Nurses watched her with quiet curiosity. Finally, the doctor came out with a sealed report. "It's confirmed," he said. "There was poison in her system, mixed into food, most likely dinner." Ben's knees gave way. Food, dinner, the jollof rice. His mind raced backward, the careful smile, the watching eyes, the strange silence that night. "No," he whispered. "No." Isabella covered her mouth. "This is wickedness," she cried. "Who could do this?" Ben said nothing. He stood up slowly. "There are cameras," he said. Everyone looked at him. "My house has CCTV?" Isabella's crying paused, just for a second. At home, the security team rewound the footage. Ben stood behind them, arms folded, heart pounding. They fast-forwarded to the night before. The kitchen camera showed Isabella alone. She removed a small bottle from her handbag. She looked around, then carefully poured something into the pot. Stirred. Closed the pot. Ben felt like the air left his body. "No," he whispered. The footage continued. Isabella serving the food, watching, waiting. Ben stepped back. His legs shook. This is not real," he said weakly. The room was silent. No one spoke. Then the doorbell rang. "Police." Ben opened the door himself. "I want her arrested," he said, voice broken but firm. "That woman killed my mother." Isabella tried to run. She didn't get far. Handcuffs clicked. As they led her away, she turned and screamed, "You chose her over me. This is your fault, Ben." Ben did not answer. He just watched. Empty. Madame Necker was buried 2 days later. Ben stood by the grave, hollow. He did not cry. He had no tears left. As the coffin lowered, he whispered, "Mama, I failed you." 2 days later, as Isabella stood in the dock before the court, she lifted her head slowly and locked eyes with Ben. And for the first time, she smiled. The courtroom in Ikea was quiet. Too quiet. People filled the benches, journalists, lawyers, strangers who only came to watch pain wear a human face. At the center sat Isabella, dressed in plain clothes, wrists cuffed, her posture stiff. Ben stood at the back. He looked older, not because of time, but because grief had pressed its thumb into his life and refused to lift it. When the judge entered, everyone rose. Justice Morenike, calm, firm, unmoved by drama. The charges were read: murder, poisoning, premeditation. Isabella listened with a blank face. The evidence followed, one piece at a time. The autopsy report, the CCTV footage, the bottle found in Isabella's bag. The kitchen video played again on a large screen. Ben could not watch. He looked down. Every sound in the room felt loud, even breathing. Isabella's lawyer spoke, tried to soften the truth, tried to bend it into something smaller. It did not work. When it was time for Isabella to speak, she stood. She looked at Ben, not with shame, with anger. "I loved my husband," she said, "but his mother stood between us. She controlled everything. I only wanted peace." A low murmur spread through the room. Justice Morenike raised a hand. Silence. She leaned forward slightly. "Madam Isabella," she said, "many people face conflict. Very few choose poison." The judge paused, then spoke clearly. "After reviewing all evidence before this court, I find you guilty as charged. You are hereby sentenced to life imprisonment." The gavel hit. Once. Final. Isabella's knees buckled. For the first time, real fear showed on her face. Ben closed his eyes. It was over. And yet, nothing felt finished. Outside the courtroom, cameras flashed. Ben walked past them without speaking. He returned to the house in Lekki. The house was clean. Quiet. Too quiet. He entered his mother's room. Her scarf still lay on the chair. Her Bible still sat on the bedside table, open to a marked page. He sat on the bed, and finally cried, not loud, just deep. "I brought her back," he whispered. "I ignored the warning. I thought love was enough." The truth sat heavy in his chest. Love without wisdom can become danger. Respect ignored can turn into regret. If you like this story, comment, share and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.